welcome. And so glad you guys are aboard here. And we definitely want to hear, what are your thoughts on these Saturn Award announcements?
I like the horror film category this year. I think that there's been a great resurgence in horror films from not just the United States, but all over the world. And I thought Only Lovers Left Alive and The Babadook kind of knocked it out of the park this year.
Okay.
What do you think, John?
Yeah, I mean, I personally love the science fiction awards. I mean, like Edge of Tomorrow was an incredible. Unfortunately, you know, they couldn't figure out a right title, so that's why I kind of bombed. There was like Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow. What was it really called? I still don't know what it was called.
All You Need Is Kill.
All You Need Is Kill,
it's
right.
Whoever made that marketing decision should get fired.
I think they were
It's
fired.
the worst marketing decision in human
history. Them and their friends were all fired. They're like, pack your bags, All You Need Is Kill, should have been called that. But what a great science fiction film.
Very cool.
And, you know, return to form for Tom Cruise as well. Really fun film. And Emily Blunt just knocking it out of the park. It was a really fun film. So that, to me, was one of the highlights of this year. So.
I love that it's such a diverse category, too, that you have hard sci-fi, you've got really some great action sci-fi like All You Need Is Kill or Edge of Tomorrow, or whatever you want to call it at this point.
And, you know, Interstellar, I mean, Christopher Nolan, because of the Dark Knight success, has Warner Brothers giving him and Paramount $200 million to make thoughtful science fiction epics. Right. I mean, in this day and age, we live in heady times, my friends.
Speaking of budget and the returns, box office, there have been some remarkable, amazing box office numbers, but they're extremely varied. I think that's part of why it's so remarkable. Planet of the Apes grossed $702 million at the box office, while Terry Gilliam's The Theorem, Zero Theorem, grossed $219,000. Talk to me a little bit about that. I mean, Terry Gilliam is so well loved. He has such an incredible fan base, and yet nobody turned out. What do you think the audiences are wanting these days in terms of, is it the high budget? Is it too quirky? Do we want more mainstream tentpole? Are the days of quirky little sci-fi films gone?
Well, you know, Zero Theorem didn't really hit it out of the park, you know, story-wise, directing-wise. It wasn't really, you know, I'll say it, I didn't like it. So, you know, I love Terry Gilliam. I think he's a genius. He's given us Brazil, if that's all he's ever given us or will give us. But he's got Monty Python. The list goes on and
12
on.
Monkeys.
12 Monkeys. So,
film.
yeah, Zero Theorem was just, you know, Time Bandits. So, hey, we can give him a pass. We've given him a couple passes, and that's a pass for me on Zero Theorem. But, you know, I mean, budget-wise, I mean, that's where we're at now. I mean, you know, a big, giant blockbuster film, if it gets good word of mouth, I mean, even just look at this year, The Kingsman. It just keeps staying at #2. It's because of word of mouth. It's not, I mean, that's where we're at now, and we live in an internet culture, like to go to see films, to watch television. You have to be like checking out like what other people say and what they're, you know, so that's kind of how, like if someone said like, Robert's like, man, you got to see this movie. I remember he told me about The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. The Swedish version. And I went and saw it. It was playing. No one had heard about it. I brought a bunch of my friends. My hipster friends was like, look, I got good word that this is awesome. The first hour of it, they were like, and I was like, sorry, you know, because it was like, you know, it was like, she didn't even get introduced until the hour point. Right. That's when it really hit. And afterwards, they're like, that was amazing. You know, sorry, we're going back too far. Let's talk about 2014.
Well, you know, to bring up what your point about, I think what's really interesting is you have an independent sensibility with people like James Gunn, the Russo brothers, who now made two of the most successful genre films of the year, Captain America and Guardians of the Galaxy. And it's a real testament to Kevin Feige at Marvel for taking a chance. I mean, if every studio director would hire a guy who'd made a movie like Slither or Super to go make $150 or $175 million tentpole, imagine the world that we would live in. I mean, Kevin Feige is the biggest gambler in Hollywood today, and he is consistently knocking it out of the park. And everyone's saying, well, you know, Guardians isn't going to work. Oh, really? You know, now we've got Avengers, Age of Ultron and the Vision in movies.
Right.
I mean,
crazy.
Unbelievable. And Ant-Man, don't count Ant-Man out. Michael Douglas in a Marvel movie, following on the heels of Robert Redford. Come on.
Yeah.
It is true that major stars are turning out in droves to do these films, and that hasn't always been the case. I mean, Guardians grossing $773 million when everyone was really dicey about the very prospect. Talk to me about the quality of the tentpole movies, well, and in terms of both story and obviously special effects and the acting, which is important.
I think the quality is really good right now, and there's a lot of debate about whether or not there's too many superhero movies or whether or not we need more adult dramas. Well, look, there were about 36 adult dramas in the mid-budget range actually last year, you know, and there were 5 superhero movies. And I think what you're seeing by bringing in these directors who have worked on smaller indie films and who have a lot of really unique visions to bring to it. I mean, even Chris Nolan, look at where he started out before helming the Dark Knight series, you know. I think genre entertainment and the nominees here at the Saturn Awards this year are a good sign of just how much quality and actually true artistic vision there is behind sci-fi and genre entertainment these days.
And television. I mean, look what we have on television. The Flash and Hannibal. We've got awesome horror, awesome superheroics. I mean, we've got comic book adaptations. Brian Bendis' Powers is going to be on PlayStation Network.
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones?
They're actually putting that in theaters. I went and saw Game of Thrones 2 episodes in IMAX, and it was insane. It beat so many of the other films that were playing in the theaters. I was like, I would go see Game of Thrones every week in a theater.
Well, I think they should do that.
Yeah.
Like a week in advance.
They
before
should.
it airs.
HBO, if you were smart, you would do that, HBO.
And even like
Well, and speaking of which, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, our young Padawan here.
Please.
I was going to say even like connecting TV shows with the movies like Agent Carter and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they're already setting up films for Marvel that are in 2018.
Yeah, kudos to ABC for that,
yeah.
and to CW for taking these great strides in so many fantastic superhero projects. I mean, obviously The Flash and Arrow are at the top of their game, and not just in terms of superhero genre, but in terms of real stories. I mean, The Flash and Arrow have themes that are incredibly compelling, and it's really not just about Flash. It's really about incredible story, just as powerful as any other genre on television. And I think that's one reason the Saturns are so important, because unfortunately the Emmys and the Oscars don't always honor excellence in acting and excellence that some of these films and television shows deserve. Just because they're genre, they're left out.
I was going to say, like, you know, everyone's talking about the tsunami of superhero films and this and that. And it's like, I couldn't see a superhero film in the late 90s. No one would do it. They were like, it's a risk, it's a risk. Now I'm happy to be alive to see all these amazing films, and it's not a tsunami, it's like a couple.
Right.
And we still have amazing other films going on. I mean, you know, one that didn't make it is Under the Skin. That's an incredible science fiction film. I was surprised it wasn't nominated, but there's so many films like that will not get nominated because we have just too much going on. So it's a great time to be alive and to be a nerd.
Well, it's funny you say Under the Skin because that was also a literary adaptation. It was an adaptation of Michael Faber's book, which was great. Now we're getting more. They just announced they're going to make The Stars My Destination, maybe.
Yeah,
I
there's
mean,
more
one of
than
the
that,
great.
guys.
Haven't they talked about that for how
but
many
there's
years?
so many great literary-based properties that are getting adapted. Game of Thrones being one of them. Fincher's Gone Girl being another. I mean, there's
a lot of great
stuff.
Speaking of which, Stephanie, you got some stuff for us. What's going on in the digital verse?
Hey guys, so Carlos is in the live chat. Thank you guys for live chatting right next to the YouTube feed. You can send us your questions. Carlos wants to know, what do you guys think about DC films? Can they catch up to the Marvel universe?
Well, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, the television already is like I said, at the top of its game.
Other than Avengers, though, I mean, the DC movies already got there. Nolan's Batman movies, especially the last two. But I think there's this weird, what do you think about the rivalry? I mean, you're wearing a Marvel shirt. Are you a Marvel guy or are you a DC guy?
I'm a fan of all genres. So I don't have any, there's no top number one. And I think it's laughable. You know, Carlos, it's a nice question, but the rivalry is like, hey, look, every single Marvel movie that makes money means a DC movie's gonna make more money too. It's just like, it's amping that kind of excitement for genre pictures, albeit science fiction, superhero, fantasy, whatever it is that you're into, we just get more of it. I'm happy that Fox owns X-Men and Fantastic Four, because that means we get more Marvel movies, because they're competing against Marvel.
And what a strong category. I think this is the first year with comic book movies as a category.
Yeah, right.
And you've got four. Well, Captain America was great.
Sure, it was really fun.
Bryan Singer knocked it out of the park again with Days of Future Past.
He made me forget about Jack the Giant Killer, or whatever.
And and Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, those are three. I mean, Marvel is, but maybe next year, Batman versus Superman is going to be at the top.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting is that DC is taking that different approach, and people want to know, well, whose approach is better? Well, they're both very strong, valid approaches. And DC, by the end of 2016, will have established they're going for kind of the pre-existing superhero world and supervillain world. We will have had Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Suicide Squad. So there will be a whole range of characters, backgrounds, everything set up as pre-existing. So they'll really be able to just kind of just jump right in, and they don't need to do a whole lot of origin tales. And I think I think it's a great alternate way to get there compared to Marvel.
Let me ask you, what do you think it is that really propels this genre? What is it that keeps audiences tuning in, coming back, buying, watching? What is it? What is at the heart of all of this? Is it the fantastical idea that we can have greater powers than we have? Is it the themes? Is it what are those? What are the things that make the audience tune in?
Well, it's two things: imagination and escapism. I mean, it's to be able to go outside of your normal life and see something that you might have imagined, or it all stems from story. So story is the most important thing, and then the imagination flourishes, and then escapism. Boy, what would it be like to be on another planet? What would it be like to experience meeting an alien? Or any one of these types of things, or going on a 5-year mission to explore the galaxy.
Well, I was just going to say, Chase, I mean, you were on Star Trek, and I think probably the greatest modern incarnation of Star Trek. And
clearly,
what was that? But the genre is really, at its core, we want to believe that human beings, even though they're superpowered, are going to solve problems. We will overcome. And I mean, Superman by proxy is just a kid in the neighborhood who's going to grow up and maybe do something as super without requiring Kryptonian DNA. I mean, we want to believe that, and I think the genre is inherently, even the darkest horror films, at their core, have human beings that are going to defeat the evil.
Absolutely.
They're going to fight back to
It's mythology, and
or maybe not.
There was a period in time when, in Hollywood history, when biblical epics and sandal and sword kind of movies were the thing, and we went through a period in the 70s and part of the 80s where Hollywood quit making big religious epic or mythical storytelling, and I think that genre in general and superhero films in particular speak to that, and I think it's a very real part of us. Part of the reason we're drawn to fantasy and escapism is that it's able to talk about aspects of our lives and of the human condition that when you do just a real life drama film, you can touch on it, but you touch on it in maybe a little bit too on the nose of a way, and that these films really can get at it in a much broader method than maybe is possible in other kinds of filmmaking.
Beautifully allegorical. I think one thing that really is important is to realize that these films and the idea of superheroes and heroes that we love on screen also speak to us in terms of what we're able to do ourselves. When we see somebody accomplishing something brave and extraordinary, we know that there are things that we ourselves can do that are brave and extraordinary, and we know that we can take that risk and really truly make the world a better place. I think, you know, there's something in us that says we love superheroes. Why not be one? And
well, you kind of
desire,
have been doing that in your own real life.
Well, I love how the fandom out there does that. I mean, we are part of an amazing group where you guys do reach out and make the world a better place. And not to get off the subject, but how many times have we all gone to conventions that have amazing charity outreaches and things that really do create not just stories on the big screen, but real stories in real life that we can actually be the heroes that we emulate. I think that's one reason that superheroes and heroes are so close to our hearts.
You know, the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films, I know when I first moved to LA, the Academy's events and Dr. Reed himself was a big part of my life. And, you know, when I was feeling down in the dumps or something, every Sunday I could go to USC and go to Norris Theater, and I could see 3 movies even if I was broke, I had my Academy membership, and Dr. Reed would stand up and he would say, "This was the best movie I've ever seen this year," and he would give a speech, and his enthusiasm was infectious. And I can't tell you, you know, these Saturn Awards and how the genre's exploded, and now people are starting, because they're the only people
way
that have been
before being a nerd was cool,
oh,
right?
And they've
Way.
been
I mean,
consistently
41 years
recognized.
here, 43 years.
Yeah.
Look how it's pushing forward on television.
Yeah.
I mean, the boundaries are being broken by genre films, like Hannibal. You know, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, you would never have seen this kind of thing on television.
Yeah, kudos to NBC for Hannibal and for Constantine, to ABC for Agent Carter, and Once Upon a Time. I missed that in this list. But there's so much being done, and the Saturns were there during the dark years. There was a time when, I don't know about where you grew up, but where I grew up, this stuff was just not popular yet, and it was just such that it's just really great that the Saturn Awards have been here throughout consistently. These guys are the real deal. Just like Big Finish kept Doctor Who alive, the Saturn Awards have really been consistent in honoring excellence in genre entertainment. Stephanie, you had a couple other things for us.
Yeah. Fumbuck asks, what do you think of Godzilla being nominated for science fiction? Shouldn't science fiction be plausible, futuristic films? I don't know what you guys think about that, but
There's so much crossover here. Take
This
that.
isn't specifically hard sci-fi. You know, it's like it's all science fiction.
Have you not seen Godzilla vs. Monster Zero, where the aliens from Planet 10 come on in flying saucers and they steal Godzilla and Rodan?
Yeah, they look like guys from Daft Punk or something.
Yeah, I mean, Godzilla does. Maybe it's not Neuromancer, maybe it's not a Neil Stephenson novel, but I'll tell you, Godzilla, the Transformers are science fiction. I mean, we got a Transformers movie that made more money than any Transformers movie before this year.
And wasn't it so great?
Yeah.
And
Well,
Godzilla's not rooted in magic. His powers aren't magical. It's the basis for it is that he's supposed to be like, well, some kind of almost a dinosaur. And even in this new film, they try to explain why he can breathe fire. It doesn't matter if it's entirely plausible or not.
Planet
It's
of the
science.
Apes
It's
was also
fiction and
nominated
it's
in
rooted
science
in
fiction.
scientific ideas.
And
A lot
Godzilla
of
was also a
crossover there.
reaction to an allegorical reaction to Japan being bombed in World War II and radiation. I mean, that is in itself a very science fiction concept, and it's just done in a pulpy way. I mean, science fiction came from Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers, and while it might not be, serious.
So many important political statements that are being made in terms of the world we live in, and the great allegory that's in this genre is really neat to see, and to see the world change, and to see people standing up for freedom and liberty and justice and all the things that science fiction and fantasy stand for.
It's great, actually, that you mentioned that. And that was something that really struck me about a lot of the nominations. When you look at them, there is an analysis that's taking place in genre entertainment of current social issues that you won't really see in very much other cinema.
Yeah.
Even if you look at a lot of the dramatic adult drama films and a lot of them that are just really great, but you don't necessarily see them attempting to address and talk about the national security state and the NSA and domestic spying. The Marvel films are all an entire deconstruction of post 9/11 national security state, where you're not really seeing that kind of thing being done a lot else unless you watch Citizen 4. Where else are you going to encounter it except in genre entertainment?
It's a lot about justice, which we know is how the world should be. I've got one more question for you guys. What are you looking forward to? What's next?
I could say Twin Peaks, because it's happening 25 years later, and I would never have imagined, being a Twin Peaks fan, that they would return exactly at the time of that dream state, you will see me again in 25 years. You will. That's the power of the world we live in now, where that is playing all the time on Netflix. You can get this amazing DVD set.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is Saturn Award nominated this year.
I know. That's why I'm mentioning it, because it's worth getting if you haven't seen it. It's an incredible, and isn't one of your things Saturn nominated?
That is true.
Star
Trek: The Next Generation Season 7 Blu-ray is
indeed.
nominated for. Thank you. I worked on those for a long time.
What about
Roger
the Deep Space
Lay and
Nine
I.
Blu-ray?
Yeah, what about the Deep Space Nine Blu-ray? Where's that?
Anyway, I digress. Go ahead.
Well, look. You know what I'm looking forward to that I can't believe that's coming out on my birthday, May 15th? Mad Max: Fury Road.
Yep.
Are you kidding me?
Can I brag and say I've already seen it?
I know,
and it's
I know.
incredible.
Wow,
But
really?
It's incredible.
Warner Brothers went and made a Mad Max movie. Let George Miller come back after 30 years. It gives me hope I can make free
and
enterprise
make a sequel
2.
to The Road Warrior, not Thunderdome. That's what this is.
It's unbelievable.
awesome.
I can't believe it. And then there's that movie coming out at the end of the year. That movie with the robots. Takes place in space. That movie.
that one.
What is it?
Oh,
It's
Star
Among the
Wars.
Stars.
Right. That's what it is.
Right.
Star Wars is
Yeah.
coming out.
Yeah, that'll be
We
good.
live in
Fantastic.
heady times.
Yeah, Mark?
I look forward to seeing the Star Wars being brought back in a way that is. I love the prequel films. Personally, I like anything Star Wars. It doesn't matter what it is. You can take a brown paper sack and write Star Wars on it, and I'm going to praise it. But
That might happen in December. You didn't know.
Yeah,
There's
it's,
a lot
it's
of merchandising in
entirely
it. I'm
possible.
sure they will.
I love that they're expanding it, and we're going to see different spin-off movies and things. I love the Star Wars universe, and I'm glad. I'm one of the people that's really happy that if someone else was going to take it over, that it's Disney, someone that's really interested in really just blowing it up bigger and getting back into it in a way that I think is going to really do it and do the fans justice.
How do you feel about Ahsoka being revealed at the end of Star Wars Rebels? Was that good? See her come back? Clone,
You know,
she was
spoilers. Some people haven't
left
even
in
seen
the
that
Clone Wars.
episode.
Well, you know what?
Can't
Her
believe it.
universe,
Burnett's
that girl,
ruining it for everyone.
that female clothing geek line spoiled that on Twitter for me, and I was really angry.
And
So I'm just
Stephanie
spoiled
is
for
wearing
her
a
now.
Star
Don't speak
Wars
ill of
dress,
her
by the way.
universe.
I love her universe.
They're the
I wear
best.
their girls' Gorn T-shirts at conventions.
I know,
They're
I've seen.
great.
Oh, here, let me pimp something really quick. Something I'm looking forward to is a documentary called "The Death of Superman Lives: What Happened," which I'm making, and it's coming out May 1st. So check it out.
All right. All right.
Yeah,
So are you
I
gonna,
really
is your
look forward
box
to
office
seeing
going to
that.
be more than Avengers: Age of Ultron?
Yeah,
What do you
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to chip away a little bit of Marvel Disney's money. So sorry about that.
Did you want to weigh in on what you're...
Yeah, I was gonna say Jurassic World because I grew up on Jurassic Park, and then I love the post-apocalyptic theme, so Mad Max as well.
Yeah. What do you think about Chris Pratt coming in and taking over the
I think he's
the
gonna
lead?
do good.
I mean, he can do no wrong, right?
Yeah, I mean they're thinking about hiring him for Indiana Jones.
What do you
So-
think about that?
I can see it.
Can he play good Indiana Jones?
And we could go on and on and on. I wish you guys could all be here for the after show, the wrap-up. Believe me, we'll be talking for hours, but so glad you guys could be here. Thank you so very much.
you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. And thank you for more than that. You guys, the fans, you're the people who create and drive these genres. You inspire us, you nurture and help shape ideas, creating a cultural zeitgeist that crosses boundaries, speaks of hope for a better future, and creates a better world. And sometimes, like a lot of our nominees, your understanding and passion for genre entertainment in childhood leads you to eventually create powerful film and TV. Log on to SaturnAwards.org to become a member and vote for your favorite films and TV shows, actors and artists who create this powerful medium. I'm Chase Masterson. See you at the Saturns.